right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Coavera, formerly Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Callum Kennard, who is across the pond, as they like to say here, over in the UK in Essex. How you doing, Callum?
I'm doing really good, thank you. As stated, I'm the head of sales at ClickSlice, which is one of the UK's leading SEO and AEO in agencies in London.
Yeah, fantastic. And I believe you're having a heat wave too.
We're having a heat wave. Yeah, it's really, really hot. Not too hot where I am because, I'm actually by the sea at the moment. So I'm in a town called Walton-on-the-Naze, and it's about 26 degrees, where the rest of the country is in the 30s. So,
oh, wow. So
yeah, not a problem for me.
Excellent. And what we're going to talk about today is the concept of over planning and maybe panicking and abandoning things too quickly. But first of all, just as your role today, just tell people how you help people with predictable revenue growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest drivers for companies online, be it if you're a service-based business or an e-commerce brand, or maybe you're within the SaaS or technology space as well, it's about online visibility. Most of the time that we spend now, it's on our phones, it's on our computers. So we're responding directly to the advertisements we see and essentially how we interact with that via keywords or prompts on large language models, right? Essentially, it's up to me as a strategist, a sales and strategist and marketing strategist for over 10 years, basically, to analyze the current visibility of these brands and come up with step-by-step strategies on how they can hit their ROI goals.
Excellent. And one of the themes that we want to explore today is the concept of over planning and how sometimes over planning can be worse than bad execution almost. So why do you think so many businesses fall into the trap of over planning?
I think it really depends on the type of business it is. So it's probably most common with startups, I would say, especially if they're kind of like, recently funded, be it a VC, angel investor, pre-seed, whatever. I've seen startups fall for this much more often than, let's say, the larger kind of corporate clients or the e-commerce brands. And I think the reason for that is kind of hype,
right?
Especially when it comes to the go-to-market strategy. Because if you've got a founder or a CEO that's so passionate and they have this vision, it's very, very easy to kind of get lost in that vision rather than kind of grounding yourself in reality. So what I've seen throughout my career is when putting together these go-to-market strategies, it's almost like over planning, which is obviously the theme, over analyzing, and just looking into things too deeply, paying lots of different consultants, getting lots of different people's inputs, hiring a load of people and getting their input into this plan before you're even making money. And then before you know it, a year's gone by.
Yeah, and it seems and the over analysis and getting too deep into. I mean, there's a certain amount of analysis obviously you need to do, but there's definitely diminishing returns when you start to get too many opinions. And I think the problem is, Callum, is a lot of it is you get some data and maybe some decent data. You get some good stuff to go on. You get some good conversations, but then you get a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
And it's when you start to get lots of opinions, it starts to derail things.
Yeah, exactly. I think when it comes to go-to-market strategies, but in particular, and over planning for those, as opposed to something else, I think it's really important to kind of get baked in an iteration process,
right?
And kind of like being able to be agile and having like a plan B set up, and also kind of like, you have to be data led and you have to like be innovative, but at the same time, you can't really let needing to be 100% perfect in every aspect all of the time hold you back, because you won't. in reality, it's a bit like the difference between reading a book when you're trying to learn something, and then kind of like actually kind of doing that thing yourself that you're reading about. You have to actually do it and iterate and go from there and optimize and learn. And that's with over planning, you're kind of stopping yourself, or there's a danger that you're not allowing yourself to have that process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. And then obviously the next step is, okay, so if you start to execute, but then when you start to confuse activity with progress, right? So more of every, you start your go to market, and then you're like more content, more ads, more this, more that, and you start to think that now it's all about activity.
So I actually had a client call today, and this is within the AEO, answer engine optimization space, or the AI search space, which is completely different from SEO, by the way, because it's a completely different strategy. But essentially, I was doing an audit within Profound, which is like the leading tool when it comes to AI search. And the data that I actually found was, I was really surprised. This company had such a high visibility score. They were actually probably the second in the whole of the UK for what they did. But when you actually looked at the activity, the amount of data points, the citations which the AI was actually kind of getting, the information from, it vastly outpaced all of its competitors. But the thing is, the leader in the industry actually had very, very small percentage of citation, not many citations at all. But those data points were far more powerful, far more powerful. So, a junior looking at that data might say something along the lines of, wow, look at all of this amazing content and look how many times it's been referenced. But like, they're not understanding the nuance of that data, because what I saw was they're trying really, really hard, paying lots and lots of money, putting all this effort into ranking within large language models. And it's not very good. It's not good content. Because the competitor that's outpacing them is doing a fraction of the work.
Right. And it's the quality, and it comes back to that thing, because ultimately the LLMs will learn that this is low quality content, and then they'll start to ignore it. And I think that's a great example of not really understanding, in getting into output mode without understanding what actually drives results.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a big one in the industry at the moment is Reddit. So there's a lot of hype around getting or using Reddit campaigns to rank within ChatGPT or Perplexity for brands, right? And if you actually look at the data, it's the same picture, as the same example as what I've said before. Reddit, across most industries, is brilliant at being the most cited, but you might get one or two prompts reference it.
Right.
There's a difference between quantity of citations and how many times a citation is referenced again and again and again, and it is evergreen. So Reddit content doesn't look to be evergreen in most industries that I've seen, unless you're a developer, unless you're within the tech space, unless you're like within the AI voice, or I don't know, or the Web3, or if your core target audience is developers, Reddit's great. It's fantastic, but for a lot of other brands, it's not. But at the moment, there's a lot of hype. A lot of big companies are pushing, obviously, Reddit. And if you look at the data, if you look deep enough, it's not actually, doesn't paint the whole picture. So it's, especially when you're trying to be data led and everything, it's kind of like, it's really important to interpret the data in a clever way, just use data just as a box ticking exercise.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem, and we've had this problem for a long time. I mean, we had the era of big data, and everything was big data, and it's more, and it was always more is more. The more data, and more analyze, more and more, and I think that's people got kind of lost in that, and then couple that with the let's churn out loads of stuff. It becomes all about volume rather than quality. And tell me, I mean, what are the hidden costs of going down this route? I mean, there's obvious costs if you keep employing people, or you're getting agencies and you're churning out. But what are some of the hidden costs of taking that kind of a volume approach over a quality approach?
Really good question. I think I mean, lots of different things. It really depends on the situation.
Mhm.
Whether I think one of the big ones is probably, let me have a think about that. I think it's just wasted efforts.
Yeah.
You know, for example, if your team is spending 60 hours a month, or you're hiring an agency for 60 hours a month to create high volume content that isn't performing very well, then you're wasting people's time that could be
Mhm.
spent on something more valuable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
And I,
obviously,
yeah, and I think that no, I think that's key to what you're just saying, is because if you think about that, if you have people doing lots and lots of work and it's not really producing results, it's just producing volume,
yeah.
ultimately there's no satisfaction in that either. I mean, it's not contributing to the business. It's not very satisfying for the people involved in the work either.
You allow me a humble sales brag. That's
Yeah.
particularly why people go to us at ClickSlice, because they're tired of SEO or AEO agencies that are getting them on 60-hour contracts, per month or whatever, and essentially it's a box ticking exercise. X amount of backlinks, X amount of blogs. People want something strategic. If you want to actually move the needle, it has to be strategic. You have to put effort where it's actually going to make the most effort. So if you're able to take that strategic approach, you're able to get more results.
Mhm.
And
And yeah,
sales, that means more, more growth for the business.
yeah.
Me on the back.
And how much of this do you think sometimes is part of the fact that they may not have defined their ideal customer profile as narrowly as they should? They haven't defined. So a lot of times it's they're doing things because maybe their target market is too broad, maybe their target customer is too broad, maybe they haven't done that work in advance.
Yeah, and going back to over planning, it's like whenever I've been involved with, an over planning process, I'm
Mhm.
like pulling my hair out.
Yeah.
It's usually like the kind of the most important things that are actually missed. The important things like, actually being really specific on the target market, because there's all this thought and effort going into
Yeah.
these groups, audience segments, demographics, and it's kind of like, yeah, well, we actually look at the basic data here. We can see that who's actually buying this already, and looking at those demographics, it paints a very, very clear picture that only takes 5 minutes to understand. So that's where if you're not getting that right and you're not targeting towards that, and you're trying to do all these different things, you're kind of wasting your time to a certain degree. I'm not saying you shouldn't plan and you shouldn't look into
Sure.
things, but what I'm saying is it's just an observation that I've seen. So yeah, absolutely, especially within the marketing space, when it comes to SEO and AEO, the danger of being too broad is quite common.
Yeah, no, I think it is, and I think, and it's also, and I mean, it's particularly afflicts startup businesses and stuff like that, where you think, okay, well, everybody's my potential customer, and you're going, no, they're not. There's no such thing. It's never happened. There's always, a subset, and you have to define that. And the more granular you can define that, the more successful you're going to be. The other thing too is, when you work with those organizations, like there are certain leaders, right, who are able to operate and make decisions and commit to things without having all of the information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are others who get paralyzed, right? So talk to me a little bit. The ones you've worked with or come across who are able to make decisions and commit to them without having like all of the data or everything or all of the information. What's different about them, and how did they approach things?
I wouldn't say that they would approach things without the data, without
Sure.
understanding.
No, I mean with incomplete, say.
Yeah. So you're never really going to have the incomplete data. You're never going to have the complete data set
Yeah.
at all times, and that's kind of impossible anyway, because the data is always changing. But essentially, it's not just about data; it's also about kind of trust
Mhm.
trust that you're working with the right people. It's like I think the most successful startup founders, for example, the most successful teams, they work with people that they can actually kind of count on, rather than people. You don't really want to be working with someone on let's say, a go-to-market or a new marketing campaign that you feel like you have to micromanage and oversee and watch everything that they're doing, right? So a lot of the time, there is a lot of trust that the people who are actioning are actually doing it in a data-led way, anyway. So yeah, I think that it's about getting that balance right. You need to have enough data. You have to have enough trust in the people as well. And the best way to do that is just evidence.
Right.
Have they done it before? Are they thinking the right way? Is there actually ROI and opportunity there? I think one of the best data sets is return on investment. It's like, if I'm working with a client and they're interested in some of our services, a lot of the time I'll bring up an ROI calculator and I'll look at the keywords, I'll look at the volume, I'll look at their average order value, I'll look at if it's realistic or not for them to do it within a certain time period, and if the ROI is there and if there's an opportunity, great. And if there's not, then it might not be the best decision.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, what is the how do you, when you work with people, help them? Because here's the thing about marketing and ROI and all of that. So sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it's complex. Attribution, all of that is sometimes hard. How do you advise people when maybe they're too quick to jump off something? The opposite, when they're not giving it enough time, or they're not perceiving the results are there, but they're not understanding how long it takes. I mean, let's face it, sometimes how long it takes, how hard it is, and how hard it is to really attribute things properly.
It's a really good question. Have you worked with an SEO agency in the past?
Yeah.
So you know all about that then. So what do you think? Interested to know what your thoughts on that.
Oh, what my thoughts on work on agencies. And so I think the proper thing is the setting of the expectation at the beginning. I think that's the most important thing, because I think too many people I don't say hype, but maybe overstate things, and they don't do enough proper prep work with the, you understand it, but the person who's on the other end doesn't, and you have to really explain to them, how are they going to see any impact? And if you can't explain that to them, then and explain that in a good way, then they're going to abandon it if they're not getting the results that they think they should be getting. So I think the expectation setting is the hardest part.
Hang on, and beyond that as well, I really think it's like actually empathizing that SEOs and AEO, for that matter, are really, really annoying. Yeah, because it does take time. And yeah, obviously a bad kind of like sales rep would probably say, "Oh, it's fine, we'll get you to page 1 in 2 months." The fact is, we don't own Google, and it's a bit unprofessional and unfair to make those promises. Is it possible? In some cases, it is, absolutely. But like, there has to be the pre-requirements, and the traction already there for it to happen. So yeah, I think it is. You're bang on. It's about setting that expectation really, really early, and also kind of like education as well. But yeah, really empathizing as well that SEO is really annoying. If you're a new business and it's a new website, it's going to take months and months and months probably until you're actually going to get any traction or return on investment. And that's just how it is. But you have to go through that really annoying, let's say, I don't know, 6 to 12 months, depending on how much work's going into it. And you have to get over that initial hump before you then start to reap rewards. So, for a business leader, it's really brave.
Yeah.
You have to take that brave step, because, you could be spending that money on paid ads. Ads. You could be, I don't know, going to a PR agent, something that gets you some more immediate results, but is going to hurt you later on down the line, because you're still going to have to go through that hump.
Yeah, and I think that is the hardest part now with SEO, and now with like GEO and AEO, and that is the fact that it's a time, it takes time, and as you said, it's really annoying. It takes effort. I mean, and now people, and people still haven't woken up completely to, that you have to do things differently now for AEO than you used to have to do for SEO. And, you have to write things differently. You have to make it friendly. You have to do all of these things.
Yeah.
And you can do all of these things, but doesn't mean you're going to show up in the LLM tomorrow.
No, it doesn't. Well, typically, if you've got really good SEO, you're probably going to have quite decent AEO as well. But the thing is, it's not going to be the best it can be, and it's not exactly going to be highly, like, it's not going to convert very highly.
Yeah.
it does take two different kind of strategies. Like typically, I will recommend that a client should not do AEO until they've got their SEO up to a certain point. And this is kind of a bit debated within the industry at the moment, because there was a study done by Ahrefs, and it was last month, and they said, I think like 34% of the top cited pages actually don't have any SEO value. So the LLMs are actually kind of like looking into pages that are pretty much have, no backlinks, no keywords, and they're still using them as citations. But the thing is, the debate at the moment is around, okay, cool, but does that overall website still have enough traction SEO wise for it to be crawled in the first place by the LLM? So it's about finding that balancing act between AEO and SEO, and everyone's got their own opinions. But as a rule of thumb, I think you need massive amounts of SEO to rank in LLMs. You really don't. But it's very, very helpful to get to a certain point to avoid wasted effort.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's, and again, and it also takes some experimentation, and experimentation, as you said, I mean, the problem with experimentation again is you're not guaranteed that it's going to give you the result you're looking for, and sometimes the experiment is to eliminate it, not to prove it, right? Sometimes,
if you're going to do an experiment that's risky, do a little study on it, make it a social media post, add to the industry, because then even if it doesn't work, at least you've contributed, and then it's got some kind of value then anyway.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. But again, I mean, it's when you're doing this experimentation or you're trying things, that's when it's hard for people maybe to explain to the founder or the CEO or whatever that you can't show like direct output just yet, because you're building towards it. And it's that, as you said, it's that bravery and having that confidence. And you mentioned earlier having the trust in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think communication is a big part of that as well. So yeah, for example, we work with quite a large brand in New York, and they recently kind of messaged us, and they basically were just like, hey, we want more communication. This isn't good enough. And I was like, hang on, we're already communicating with you every day. And we've had all these replies. It's really good. It actually turned out that they're actually under a little bit of pressure from the higher ups, because they're being pitched other agencies left, right, and center.
Right.
Ammunition to show them that, hey, there is results here. This is worth sticking with. So yeah, once we understood that, we provided that, and happy days essentially.
Yeah, because unfortunately everyone is getting bombarded, as you said earlier, by these people who are making like outrageous predictions about what they can do, or they're scaring people, and they come, oh yeah, I've just done a review, I've got an audit of your site and it's terrible, and it's like, all this kind of stuff.
Honestly, that is the go-to when it comes to, like, I think maybe service industry sales, so especially SEO, especially AEO, maybe kind of SaaS to a certain degree as well. It's very much like, this product is rubbish, this service is absolutely rubbish, and you pick loads of holes in it.
Yeah.
And then you get them on a discovery call and you get them to swap. I tend not to try to do that. If I see something that is working really, really well, I will kind of say that it's working really, really well. So, if a client comes to me and says, I really don't like our SEO agency because we're not ranked 1 within 2 months, I'll basically just say 2 months isn't enough time. Stick with them a bit longer.
Yeah.
Because I think it's part of it just morality. And I think another thing is, like, people generally understand these things. They know when they're being hoodwinked. If they don't, they're going to find out sooner or later. And then you're going to get a bad review. So it's actually bad for your business. Yeah.
And it's always I always find it's an interesting approach, is it, to basically say, oh, everything you're doing right now sucks, by the way. But if you want to give me money, I can fix it for you. I always thought that's a bit of an odd approach. I think what you're saying, like, if you can actually say to them, like, oh, I see you're doing this. This is really good. You're doing this really well. Here's how you might want to improve it. Far better approach.
Far better. Far better. Yeah. It's because quite often, what clients are doing, it's actually working. But I often just say, if you just want to take it that bit higher and go to that next level, this is what we'd do. And that's quite often that's enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fantastic, Callum. Thank you so much for this a very interesting conversation. All of Callum's information will be below this video. Before we go, please do remind people again what you do.
I'm the head of sales at ClickSlice. We're a leading agency in the UK focused on SEO and AEO, which stands for Answer Engine Optimization, essentially ChatGPT, Claude, getting mentioned within those LLMs.
Perfect. All right. But listen, thanks again, Callum. Thank you for watching and listening. See you all again very soon. Thank you.